Your company just lost $2 billion, and the woman standing behind you says the little boy beside her is your son. Julian Cross turned so quickly that his security chief nearly collided with him. Elena Hart stood 10 feet away, one hand gripping a toddler's jacket, the other holding a worn envelope. Julian stared at the boy, then at Elena. Why did you come here? Elena didn't answer. She held out the envelope. Julian looked down at the handwriting. His own name was written across the front. His phone kept vibrating. London was waiting for him. His biggest acquisition was minutes from collapsing. His board was demanding an answer, and yet he couldn't stop looking at the child beside Elena. The boy had Julian's dark eyes. The same crooked left eyebrow. Even the tiny scar beneath his chin sat in almost the exact place Julian's had since childhood. Julian swallowed. How old is he? 20 months. His hand dropped from the envelope. What's his name? Micah. Julian crouched slowly. Micah stared at him without blinking. Then the boy reached toward Julian. Elena pulled him back. You don't get to do that. Julian looked up. Do what? Act like you can recognize him just because he looks like you. The airport announcements continued around them. Julian's security team stood frozen. His chief of staff, Marcus Vale, rushed over with a phone pressed to his ear. Julian, we have a problem. The London investors are threatening to walk. Julian didn't move. Marcus lowered the phone. They're giving you 12 minutes. Julian looked at Elena, then at Micah, then at the departure screen. Who is he? Elena's jaw tightened. You know exactly who he is. Julian stood. I don't. Elena finally said it. He's your son. Julian stared at her. The airport seemed to shrink around him. No. You heard me. I would have known. You should have. That answer hit harder. Julian reached for the envelope. Elena released it. Inside were copies of emails, phone records, and one hospital document. His eyes moved across the first page. A message dated 19 months earlier. Then another. Then another. He looked at Elena. You tried to contact me? I tried more times than I can count. Why didn't I receive anything? That is the question you should be asking. Marcus stepped closer. Julian, we need to leave. Julian didn't even look at him. Cancel the flight. Marcus blinked. The London flight? All of it. You can't be serious. Cancel it. That deal is worth billions. Julian finally turned toward him. So is this. Marcus looked at Elena, then at the toddler, then back at Julian. You're willing to lose the company over this? Julian's answer came quietly. I've already lost something. Elena watched him carefully. You don't even know what you're losing. Julian stepped toward Micah. The toddler didn't retreat this time. He reached for Julian's watch. Julian let him touch it. Then Micah smiled. Julian's phone rang again. Marcus answered. His face changed. They've withdrawn the offer. Julian looked up. How much? $2 billion from the table. Julian nodded. Then let it go. Marcus stared at him as if he'd lost his mind. Elena didn't smile. Instead, she looked at the envelope. You still haven't asked why I stopped trying. Julian's eyes narrowed. Why? Because someone answered one of my messages. Julian froze. What did they say? Elena looked directly at him. They told me you didn't want me contacting you again. Julian's expression changed. I never said that. I know that now. The answer created a new silence. Julian looked down at the papers again. The messages were real. The dates were real. The phone number was his. But the person who had answered Elena wasn't him. Julian suddenly looked at Marcus. Who had access to my private correspondence? Marcus hesitated. Your executive office. Who specifically? Marcus didn't answer. Julian stepped closer. Marcus. Your office director handled most personal correspondence during the acquisition. Name. Marcus swallowed. Victor Shaw. Julian knew the name. Victor had been with Cross Meridian for 11 years. He had managed Julian's calendar, filtered calls, and controlled access to his private office. Julian looked back at Elena. You were pregnant when you contacted me? Yes. And you told them? I told them everything. Julian opened the hospital document. His eyes stopped on the date. 3 days before Micah was born, Elena had sent another message. The subject line read, "Please tell Julian his son is coming." Julian stared at it. His thumb moved across the screen. He couldn't breathe normally. He looked at Elena. "You sent this?" "Yes." "Did anyone answer?" "No." Julian scrolled. There was another message. Then another. Then a final reply. His face hardened. The reply came from his executive office. It contained only one sentence. "Julian does not wish to continue this relationship. Please do not contact this office again." Julian looked up. "I didn't write this." Elena's voice dropped. "I know." For several seconds, neither moved. Then Elena reached for Micah. "We're leaving." Julian looked at his son. "Wait." Elena stopped. "I need to know what happened." "You need to know?" "Yes." "You had 20 months to find out." Julian looked at the message again. "I didn't know you were there. And I didn't know you weren't rejecting me." That was the first time Julian had no answer. He took out his phone. "Marcus." "Yes." "Find Victor." Marcus hesitated. Now. Julian looked at Elena. "And find every message she ever sent." Marcus nodded. Julian handed him the envelope. "All of them." Marcus walked away. Julian turned back toward Elena. "I don't expect you to trust me. You shouldn't. I don't expect you to forgive me. You haven't earned that either." Julian nodded. "What can I do?" Elena looked down at Micah, then back at him. "Come tomorrow." Julian waited. 10 o'clock. "I'll be there. If you're late, don't bother." Julian nodded. "I won't be." Elena walked away. Julian watched his son disappear through the crowd. For the first time in 20 years, he had no interest in catching a plane. He had something else to catch. A chance. And somewhere inside his own company, a man was already trying to bury the evidence. If you want to know what Julian's own office did with those messages, and why that decision stayed hidden for nearly 2 years, subscribe now, because that answer comes when Julian finally confronts the person who made it disappear. Julian returned to his headquarters that night. He didn't sleep. He sat alone in his office while Marcus reconstructed the communication trail. At 2:17 a.m., Marcus walked in carrying a laptop. "I found something." Julian looked up. "What?" Marcus placed the laptop on the desk. There were 14 messages. Julian stared at him. 14? 13 before the birth. 1 afterward. Who deleted them? That's the problem. Marcus turned the laptop around. They weren't deleted. Julian leaned forward. They were archived. By whom? Marcus pointed to the access log. Victor Shaw. Julian's jaw tightened. Open them. Marcus opened the first, then the second, then the third. Each message contained the same basic information. Elena was pregnant. Elena wanted Julian to know. Elena was asking for a conversation. The fourth message contained an ultrasound appointment. The seventh contained a photograph. The ninth said she was going to the hospital. Julian stopped Marcus. Open number 9. Marcus did. The message was short. I'm going in tonight. If you want to be there, please call me. Julian stared at the timestamp. 3 hours later, Micah was born. Julian had been in a conference room signing a $640 million agreement. He had never known. Then Marcus opened the final message. It was sent 6 weeks after the birth. He has your eyes. I don't know what else to do. Julian closed his eyes. Who answered? Marcus opened the response. Victor. Again. Julian stood. Where is he? Marcus hesitated. Victor resigned this morning. Julian's head snapped toward him. What? He sent his resignation 6 hours ago. Where is he going? His house is empty. Julian grabbed his coat. Find him. Marcus followed. Julian, this isn't just an employment issue. I know. There are legal implications. I know. And if he manipulated private communications. Julian stopped at the elevator. I don't care what happens to the company tonight. He pressed the button. I care why my son grew up without me. The elevator opened. Julian stepped inside. Then his phone rang. Elena. He answered immediately. Hello. Her voice was tight. Julian, something happened. He straightened. What? Someone came to my apartment. Julian's expression changed. Who? I don't know. Are you safe? Yes. Where's Micah? With me. Did they hurt you? No. Then tell me exactly what happened. Elena took a breath. They left something outside my door. What? A letter. Julian's grip tightened around the phone. What does it say? I haven't opened it. Don't. There was a pause. Then Elena said, Julian, it's addressed to you. The elevator doors opened. Julian stepped out. Stay where you are. I thought you said you didn't know where I lived. I don't. Then how did they? Julian stopped walking. He understood the implication. Someone inside his company had access to Elena's information. Someone who had known about her for nearly 2 years. Someone who had just discovered Julian was finally asking questions. He turned toward Marcus. Lock down every office. Marcus stared at him. Why? Because whoever sent that letter knows where my son lives. The next morning, Julian arrived at Elena's apartment before sunrise. The letter remained unopened on the kitchen table. He didn't touch it. Instead, he called a forensic investigator. Within an hour, they traced the envelope. It had been mailed from an office building owned by Cross Meridian. Julian stared at the report. Victor? The investigator shook his head. Not directly. Then who? He pointed to a security camera frame. A man leaving the building. Julian recognized him. It was Victor's assistant. The same assistant who had handled Elena's correspondence. Julian called him. The man answered on the 4th ring. Mr. Cross, why did you send the letter? Silence. I didn't. You were recorded leaving the building. I was ordered to. By whom? Another silence. Then, your father. Julian froze. His father had died 8 years earlier. The man corrected himself. His old foundation. Julian looked at Marcus. What does that mean? The assistant's voice cracked. Victor wasn't hiding Elena from you. Julian's face hardened. Then what was he doing? He was following instructions that were already in your corporate succession files. Julian stared at the phone. What instructions? The answer came quietly. If you ever tried to leave the company for a personal matter, we were supposed to stop you. Julian looked toward Micah's bedroom. His entire empire had been designed to keep him working, even when the reason no longer mattered. He finally understood the cruelest part. Victor hadn't created Julian's obsession. Julian had built the machine himself. Victor had simply learned how to operate it. Julian turned toward Elena. I can't undo 20 months. She said nothing. I can't give you back the birth. Still nothing. I can't give Micah back his first steps. Elena looked toward the bedroom. No. Julian nodded. But I can give him tomorrow. Elena finally looked at him. Then show me. Julian did. He stayed. He learned. He failed. He came back. When business demanded everything, he delegated instead of disappearing. When Elena questioned him, he answered instead of retreating. When Micah cried at 2 in the morning, Julian got out of bed. Weeks later, Micah's birthday arrived. Julian wanted a huge celebration. Elena refused. He doesn't need a ballroom. So Julian bought a small cake. For candles. A toy truck. And a tiny bracelet with a silver truck charm. Micah grabbed the toy before anyone else. Then he reached for Julian. Elena watched from across the room. Julian looked at her. Is this okay? She nodded. It is. That night, after Micah fell asleep, Elena sat beside Julian. I still don't know if this works. Julian nodded. Neither do I. I don't want promises. I won't make any. I want consistency. You'll get it. She looked at him for a long moment. Maybe we can try. Julian didn't move. Slowly, she added. Slowly. For the first time, they were building something without pretending the damage had never happened. Then Julian's phone rang. A major investor was threatening to pull billions from the company unless Julian flew out immediately. Elena looked at the phone. Julian looked at Micah's bedroom. Then he declined the call. He didn't need to prove he had chosen his family. He needed to prove he could keep choosing them. Months passed. The company survived. The acquisition eventually closed under Julian's new leadership structure. He still made mistakes. One morning, he missed an appointment with Elena because of an emergency board meeting. He called before she could wonder where he was. I messed up. She waited. I won't make an excuse. Another pause. Okay, I'll be there tomorrow. You'd better. He arrived early. Micah ran toward him. Julian dropped to one knee. The boy grabbed his hand. Then Micah said it. Dad. Julian froze. Elena stood behind them. She didn't say anything. She didn't need to. Julian had spent his entire adult life building things that could be measured. Companies. Fortunes. Buildings. Contracts. None of them had prepared him for one small word from a toddler. He looked at Micah. Say it again. Micah laughed. Dad. Julian smiled. Then he looked at Elena. She smiled too. Not because everything was fixed. It wasn't. Because he had finally stopped asking for forgiveness before earning it. He had learned that fatherhood wasn't one decision at an airport. It was the decision made the next morning. And the morning after that. And every morning after that. He hadn't lost 2 years because he didn't love his son. He lost them because he built a life that made love impossible to reach. Now he was tearing that life apart, one choice at a time. And for once, Julian Cross wasn't trying to build an empire. He was trying to build a home. If this story hit you the way it hit me, subscribe, because the next story is about another billionaire who gets everything he ever wanted, only to discover the one thing money can't protect.